It always boils down to math. The longer you've been around as a company, the more likely you're going to make some serious whoopsies along the way if you haven't already. Because businesses are ran by people and people make mistakes. So there's plenty of people out there swearing off Balenciaga forever and burning their bags over one bad marketing campaign. But you do know that some of your favorite luxury brands have done or continue to do much worse, right? So either we've forgotten or we've forgiven. Which is it? I thought it'd be fun today to talk about some of my favorite controversies that shook the luxury world until they didn't. I find this fascinating and I hope you do too. This is going to be another chatty video, so please feel free to just let it play as you go about living what I hope is your best life. Hello and welcome to A Briefcase of Luxury, a place where we love to chat about all things related to life, learning, and luxury. If you are new, welcome, and if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. Today I have yet another educational video for you where I combine my day job as a business professor with my love for all things luxury. I make these videos because I truly believe that being a mindful consumer is to be an informed consumer, which means knowing and learning about the companies we choose to throw our hard-earned money at. I have a few other educational type videos like this as well, and I'll leave them in the description box below if you are interested in checking them out later. Today I want to focus on this concept of corporate reputation, a topic near and dear to my heart because that's a major aspect of my research. Now let's just say intuitively we understand that a good reputation takes a very long time to build and just seconds to destroy. All it takes is one scandal, one controversy, one bad tweet from the founder, and let's just say it, one bad marketing campaign to wreak some serious havoc. Yes, Balenciaga, we still haven't forgotten about you yet. On one hand, we talk about reputation having spillover or halo effects, so that when a company has a good reputation, we give them the benefit of the doubt because their reputation gives us the assurance of what to expect from them. Now, on the other hand, we hold these same companies to higher standards so that when our expectations aren't met, the level of backlash is higher too. Now, this is especially true in the context of luxury brands because we recognize we are paying significantly more than what it costs the company to produce their products, and we rationalize that decision to pay more because we think we are paying for more, and part of that more includes paying for a good reputation. Now let's go back to Balenciaga for a second, because after the campaign in question first went down in 2022, there's been quite a few boycotts. You have influencers publicly denouncing them, burning their bags, distancing themselves, making claims to never support such an unethical company with unethical morals ever again. Now fast forward to today, we're still seeing influencers saying they've taken all Balenciaga items off of their wish list. We're seeing people unfollowing or unsubscribing to certain influencers for not taking Balenciaga off their wish list. I mean, I get it, I really do, but it's almost comical because this sure as heck isn't the first time a company's made a marketing blunder. So in a way, pardon me for saying this, but poor Balenciaga, because everything that went down, all the conditions present, just led to the perfect storm. We have the prevalence of social media. We have an extremely volatile political/social canceling climate. I mean, everything put together just made for the perfect storm. And so all in all, the backlash was pretty intense, but some would say maybe unproportionately or unfairly so. So let's step back to understand what we are protesting or canceling, because I think it stems from two root causes. One, we take this marketing campaign as evidence of Balenciaga's poor business ethics. I mean, fair enough, but let's walk this argument to its final conclusion. Balenciaga is merely a subsidiary of a larger parent company, Kering, who also owns brands like Gucci, YSL, Bottega, as well as some other smaller luxury houses too. So any evidence of poor business ethics on Balenciaga's part, by logic, should be extended to its highest level of decision making, shouldn't it? Because it's all part of one well-oiled machine, which means this should also be treated as evidence of poor business ethics for Gucci, for YSL, and for Bottega too. To support these other companies while withdrawing support for Balenciaga essentially does nothing, since they ultimately function as one single unit. One could argue that subsidiaries often have diversifying characteristics to make for a holistic portfolio, which means for Kering, if let's say Balenciaga is meant to be the bad boy or the scary spice of the group, then chances are they may be expected to push boundaries and to be risque. But it's a fine line to cross, and they are a brand that will be more susceptible to pushing the boundaries too far. And sure enough, while Kering has reported slower growth for Balenciaga, they still saw growth nonetheless. And overall, as part of a larger portfolio, we still saw an increase in revenue by 18% from 2021 to 2022, and an increase in recurring operating income of 22%, so they're doing just fine. That's part one of an issue that would need to be addressed. Now, if in this crusade to withdraw support from Balenciaga, you extend that crusade to all Kering products, then that makes more sense and more accurately reflects your ethical stance. Second is the issue of what the controversy is about, which essentially reflects all things related to the exploitation of children. Again, the actual exploitation of children is awful. It's unethical. There's no ifs or buts about it. Yet I don't think anyone can successfully argue that Balenciaga has provided any evidence of their personal involvement in anything related to the exploitation of children. P.S. I did a quick scan of their 2022 report to see if they were going to outline any recovery measures, but no, aside from that one line that mentioned controversies regarding one of its media campaigns. But I know there have been public apologies issued, promises of new internal investigations, and a renewed vigor to protect exploited children and support organizations with those causes. So please fact check me, but I don't believe Balenciaga has shown any personal involvement in child exploitation. Yet there's an overwhelming evidence of children being exploited in the luxury or fashion industry in general. And these companies don't garner the same backlash. I mean, in fact, here in the US, we've seen a 70% uptick of child labor violations since 2018, and over 800 US companies alone last year were caught violating child labor laws, from chicken processing plants to stereo packaging to automotives. Again, if in your crusade to withdraw support from Balenciaga, you extend this to all products where there are evidence of child exploitation, then again, your argument will be better backed. Let's just say what happened here was tragic, and I'm not trying to be heartless, so please don't interpret it this way. But as long as we have had marketing, we have had controversial marketing, where creative personnel have pushed the boundaries a little too far, period. We just didn't have the power of the internet to the extent that we do today. And in case you've forgotten, we had Prada's monkey keychain in 2018. We had Dolce & Gabbana's Chinese ad. We had Gucci's balaclava sweater. These were all marketing specific, right? Where you can argue we're done in risque but poor artistic taste. But that's not where scandals and controversies end. There are also controversies tied to actual business strategies that reflect poor business ethics, not poor marketing. In 2017, for instance, a report by the Business and Human Rights Resource Center found that luxury brands such as Prada, LVMH, and again Kering were among some of the worst performers in terms of workers' rights. So there we're actually talking about questionable working conditions. In 2019, an investigation by PETA found that the crocodile farms that supplied Hermes were engaging in inhumane practices. And here we're talking about questionable supply chain issues and working with questionable partners. The list goes on, yet it's always a wonder what we hone in on and react to, and what we decide to turn a blind eye to or simply forgive and forget. There's so many angles we can attack this from, so let's get started. Now, disclaimer, please note I am not a historian, I am not a political scientist, so I will withhold opinions and judgments related to each because I don't think I'm qualified to speak on those topics. However, I do want you to draw your own conclusions to see how these controversies affect your future purchasing decisions, if they do at all. In light of Chanel being headlining news in the luxury community, where better to start, right? Coco Chanel. We remember her as being ahead of her time for being the creator of what continues to be some of the most sought-after handbags and designs today. We love her for her contributions to the fashion world, yet we have either conveniently forgotten, or maybe some of us genuinely didn't know about her alleged involvement with the Nazi Party, which stemmed from her personal belief system. Now, there are many sources you can refer to, so I don't have time to go over all of them, but it boils down to two things. One, her actual collaboration with the Nazi intelligence service, which was an extension of two, her openly acknowledged anti-Semitic beliefs and use of the situation to attempt to gain control of the Chanel house back from the Wertheimers, who were Jewish. If you recall my last video on this topic, Chanel made a partnership decision to sell her rights to Chanel, including her name and her designs, to the Wertheimers, who continue to own Chanel to this day. So clearly her attempt to regain her house was unsuccessful. Now, in short, Chanel tried to claim the company back on the grounds of Nazi occupation laws at that time that called for the seizure of property or businesses owned by Jewish people to be transferred to non-Jews. Now, the Wertheimers had enough foresight to turn the Chanel house over to a Christian French businessman until the occupation was over. So Coco's claim to reclaim Jewish property didn't work in her favor because it had already been transferred to a non-Jewish business owner. Again, this wasn't even the Cliff's Note version of her life, but I encourage you to read more, especially if Chanel is a brand that you support and if you care about things like this. If not, no worries. Let's also talk about Hugo Boss. The company was founded in 1924 by Hugo Boss, and while we now know them as a contemporary men's fashion brand, Hugo Boss himself was a fairly prominent member of the Nazi Party, where he became a licensed supplier of their uniforms, which meant he became a very successful business person making money off the regime, where in a span of under 4 years, he increased his revenue by 5-fold. But beyond just being an official supplier, the company also allegedly used forced laborers, including women and other prisoners of war, to manufacture these uniforms. After the war, Hugo Boss was tried and fined for his involvement. It wasn't until 2011 that the company issued a formal apology for their involvement in the Nazi regime and for utilizing forced laborers, claiming they were unaware of his involvement until the late 90s, and the company itself commissioned the investigation into its history. Now, before I go any further, let's just cut to the chase. 99% of luxury fashion houses were affected by World War I or II. As Hugo Boss's own son commented, "Of course my father belonged to the Nazi Party, but who didn't back then? The entire industry worked for the Nazi army." So considering that most of the fashion houses that continue to stand today were already established before the start of those wars, and in order to survive and to be here today, they honestly had to pick a side. Louis Vuitton currently calls their collaboration with the Nazis during the German occupation in France and their support for the Vichy government ancient history and not reflective of their modern, diverse, tolerant company that they are today. It was also said that Gucci made military boots for the Italian infantry during World War II. Christian Dior was said to have unwillingly dressed the wives of Nazi officers and Nazi French collaborators, and in reality, many other fashion houses did the same in order to remain in business. Although, did you know Christian Dior's sister, Catherine, served as a member of the French resistance, was captured by the Gestapo, and sent to the Ravensbrück concentration camp, where she was incarcerated until 1945. After, she became a rose farmer in Grasse, and you see where I'm going with this, right? Supposedly, in 1947, Christian Dior named his debut fragrance Miss Dior in tribute of his sister. So while some of you may argue this is all ancient history, there are still remnants alive today, especially when we want to talk about politics. Musha Prada, who is alive and well today, has a PhD in political science and was a member of the Italian Communist Party. Again, communism was a popular ideal back then in the 70s, and even she herself said it was the thing to join. So I'll say it again, I'm withholding judgment, but if political ideals are something you are interested in and something you do factor in when making purchasing decisions, it's just good to know who and what you are against and why. Everything becomes history in time. What's important is how companies choose to handle the narrative during the aftermath, and sometimes it's all about the narrative. So let's end on a more lighthearted note. The orange bags, the orange boxes, the orange unboxings, we all know what that means. In the luxury community, that color is synonymous with the luxe of the luxe and as iconic to Hermes as their actual products. If you didn't know, and I pulled this direct from the Hermes website, Hermes's packaging used to be cream colored until World War II, where they ran into a shortage of boxes, and lo and behold, the only boxes that their supplier had left was that construction/inmate/Halloween orange that no one else wanted. So with the right narrative, the color became the brand's signature overnight, and they have kept it since instead of going back to the original. So it's amazing how perceptions can shift so quickly with the right narrative. As you can tell, the luxury world is plagued with controversies that are quite incredible, yet for the most part, we don't hold these against the companies anymore. Or do we? I don't know. Are you okay with Chanel being possibly a Nazi sympathizer and an anti-Semite? If you are someone who opposes communist ideals, are you okay supporting Prada and what their owners individually stand for? Why or why not? Or are you likely to hold some companies more accountable than others? I'd be so curious to know down in the comments below. Like I said, I'm no historian or political scientist, so I am by no means qualified to shed light on those aspects. However, our collective knowledge of corporate reputation suggests that at the end of the day, reputation is a finicky thing. But thankfully, at the same time, we as a collective are quick to forget. And companies know that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kering isn't losing too much sleep over Balenciaga at the moment, because before you know it, you'll probably end up forgetting about it too. For better or for worse, we be like that as people. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Until then, class dismissed.